All right, so this morning, my guest is Jennean Gadsden. And Jennean, I have known her for quite some time because Jennean and I actually attend the same church, but I really didn't get to know her until over the last couple of years or so, whenever she started her journey with cancer. And that's whenever Jennean and I became closer than we were prior to her experience. All right. I would see Jennean come into church, and attractive young lady, she'd sit where she sit. I would see her from afar, so forth and so on. But then there was a few people in the church who had been afflicted with various cancers. So I would ask Reverend Clayton, do you have the number? I'd like to send him a text. I want to send him a text. Do you have the telephone numbers? He'd give it to me, and I'd send them a text. And so Jennean was one of the ones, every time she'd pop in my mind, and I think about her on the morning or in the afternoon, whatever, I'd just send her a text. And that's how Jennean and I became close. So whenever I started last year, kind of with the folks coming in sharing their various experiences and how they overcame and their victories with cancer, got a lot of positive response. So I told Jennean, I'm going to have you on the show, and we got it scheduled for this morning. So welcome, Jennean.
Thank you very much for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming out. So I'll tell you what, let the listening audience know a little bit. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize till I read your bio that you were actually born in New York.
Yes, I am a native New Yorker. That song was written about me.
A native New Yorker. Yes. There you go. So you're a native New Yorker that transplanted into the Paterson, New Jersey area.
Yes, we moved here when I was 10.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Jennean Gadsden. As Mark said, I am a native New Yorker. Most of my family still lives in New York, but I am a proud Patersonian. I work for the City of Paterson. I've worked there for the next 2 months. I'll be 26 years, which is a long time. Hopefully, I'll be retiring in the next year and a half.
Good for you.
I'm an avid reader. I love to read. I love music. I just love enjoying life, and I have a new appreciation for life since going through my cancer journey, as I like to call it. And it has been a journey. Yeah,
and that's why I want yes. on the show in terms of, as I've shared, when Karen Jones was with me, when Kim Williams was with me, Karen had breast cancer as well. Kim had ovarian cancer. And you had breast cancer also,
ovarian.
Right? Oh, you had ovarian too? Oh, okay. I thought you were breast cancer. Yeah, so you're ovarian cancer. Yes. Okay. So, all right. Ovarian cancer, one, is not as, I don't even think the word is not popular, but not as prevalent as breast cancer.
Yes.
But it's one of those that's kind of like when you get diagnosed with it, it's one of the more dangerous ones.
Yes, it is. Yes, it definitely is.
Yeah, like we were saying, like ovarian, I mean, there are some people who have pancreatic, and pancreatic, very few people I know who survived that. And ovarian is kind of sort of the same way.
Yeah, because usually by the time you get the symptoms, it's too late.
That's the same thing Kim said. She was saying, like, see, and therein lies the issue or the problem with some cancers. Like, they're very hard to detect.
Yes, because you can explain the symptoms away for other things.
Right. So, speaking of that, what now prompted you, or what symptoms, what was going on that said, you know what, something's not right here?
Well, in 2021, May to be exact, I went for my regular physical, which was a blessing because my doctor wasn't available, but I was very comfortable with his nurse practitioner, so I still went. Had my blood work done. It was a Wednesday. Wednesday she calls me. She says to me, I need you to go to the hospital right now. And I said to her, why? She's like, your hemoglobin is a 4, which normally is 12. She said, I don't even know how you were walking around. And I was tired. But I was explaining I was taking care of my mother and working and doing everything, so I didn't. Now, what was crazy is I was going to Aruba that Saturday. So I'm like, okay. I needed to take a COVID test. So I said to her, okay, can I take my COVID test before I go to the hospital? She's like, all right, go do that. Went to the hospital. She said, they're probably going to give you blood because that's what you need. So I went into the hospital, and I didn't realize it was a big deal because I'm like, okay, I'm walking around. And I walked into the ER, and they're all looking at me like, how'd you get here? I said, I drove. They said, what do you mean you drove? I said, I drove. They're like, you could have passed out or anything. So I come in, the doctor comes in, and he's like, okay, we're going to give you some blood or whatever. I said, okay, doctor, I have to tell you something. He goes, well, I said, on Saturday, I'm leaving for Aruba. So I need to be out the hospital by Friday. And he's looking at me like, okay. So he actually put that in my chart. Patient needs to be out by Friday, going to Aruba Saturday. So I got everything together, got my blood. Doctor said it was great that I came in, because if I went to Aruba, I probably would have ended up in the hospital.
In Aruba?
Yes. So that was that. Follow up with my gynecologist when I left the hospital. So I did all that. In the meantime, my mother was sick. Within that month or so, she passed away. So I made an appointment with my gynecologist, went to the gynecologist, and she's like, yeah, something's not right. Did all the tests, and she referred me to a gynecologist. And she said, I can do surgery. She said, I can't do the surgery. She said, I need you to go. So then I went to John Thorough Cancer Center. Excellent place. I hope nobody has to go, but if you do, John Thorough Cancer Center is excellent. My surgeon, Cloacista, she saw me. We ran all the tests, and she's like, you have ovarian cancer. And I looked at her, and I said, okay. I had my breakdown, got it together, and I said, okay, what are we going to do? What's next? I said, you know what? And it's crazy because my mother had breast cancer twice. So that's what I always was worried about. I never even thought about ovarian. That just wasn't, I'm a person who goes to the doctor. I have excellent insurance. I work for the city. So I go to the doctor every year. I do my checkups. I do all of that. So that was never in my mind. So she told me, I said, okay, what are we going to do? She said, well, we're going to run some more tests, and we're probably going to have to do surgery. I said, okay. So we ran the tests, and she's like, I'm going to do surgery in 2 weeks. And I'm looking at her like, okay. I booked another trip. I'm like, because I don't know how this is, I don't know.
Right.
So I went to Mexico. I wasn't feeling that great, but it was just, I didn't know how long this was going to take. What I did was I had 3 rounds of chemo before the surgery. The first round almost took me out. I said to the doctor, I don't know if I can do this. I said, I just can't. Every thing that you can get when you get chemo, I got it every day. It was something new. I was sick. I had to crawl to the bathroom. I just could not, my body was just like, what is going on? Doctor said, okay, what we're going to do is let's tweak it a little bit. I'll give you your chemo, and the next day you're going to come back for fluids. That helped a little bit, but chemo it kills the cancer, but it kills everything else too. The energy, I was just tired all the time. I couldn't eat. I didn't have an appetite at all. I went from 210 by the time I had my surgery, I was 130 pounds.
That's almost 100 pounds.
Yes. I had no appetite. Everything tasted weird. It didn't taste good. So it's like, you have to eat, but it doesn't taste good. So how do I eat? And I was feeling nauseous. So we did the 3 rounds of chemo. I had the surgery actually a year ago, January 13th. The day of my surgery, is crazy because I wasn't scared at all. It was weird to me because I'm like, I'm not scared at all. We went in. My brother came from Florida to be there with me. And this was a time when you couldn't get visitors. Which was a blessing though, because after my surgery, I had time to just rest and just think about, okay, what does this mean? What are we doing after? Reflect. So I had my surgery that morning. I was making jokes as I was going in and it's funny because I always tell people, Michael Jackson and all of them did these drugs. I'm like, I get it because that stuff,
that's some good sleep.
I'm like,
when I had my first colonoscopy,
yes,
I could have gone on to glory.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's some of the best sleep I've ever had.
The only thing I remember is I was making jokes. They told me to get on the bed, and I don't remember anything after that. I woke up in the room.
Absolutely.
Right. I woke up in the room. The doctors, I'm like, I don't even know how long I've been up here. Talked to my brother. I called him back. He said, you already talked to me, right? I'm like, okay. So after that, I was in the hospital for 2 days, which normally it's about 4 to 5 days. I was good in 2 days. My best friend Lucy insisted that I stay with her afterwards. It was supposed to only be 2 weeks. I came back, I had 3 more rounds of chemo after. That was the plan. 3 before surgery and then 3 after. Afterwards, it was still a little rough because dealing with the pain from the surgery and everything, because I had a total hysterectomy. Everything. Total. She even took out my appendix. She said, you don't need it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay. So 2 weeks, at my best friend Lucy's house. They're helping me to recuperate because it was slow. I wasn't in a lot of pain because my doctor scared me half to death. She said, afterwards you're going to feel like you got hit by a bus. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I like that. And God saw fit. It really was not. I guess because I was preparing for the worst, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So 2 weeks into my surgery, after my surgery, I was checking on the house. I go into the house. I open the door. And there's water coming down from the ceiling. And my best friend's husband, Larry, he took me because I couldn't drive. And I walked back out and I said, Larry, I hear water in the house. And he said, what do you mean you hear water? I said, I haven't even opened the door and I hear water. Now I just had surgery. We're 2 weeks later.
Right.
I go to my home that I grew up in. Remember, my mother just passed, so I'm still dealing with that. And a pipe burst while I was in the hospital. Total demo. The whole house had to be totally demoed. Everything had to go. Everything had to go. And I was just like, I can't deal with this right now. I got to worry about myself. So we left. Had to call insurance, get that taken care of. So since January 13th, when I had my surgery, that was the last time I had been in the home that I lived in and my mother lived in, and everything had to go. But here's the caveat. While I was in the hospital, my mother lived there for 42 years. And I was saying, God, how am I going to get all that stuff out of that house by myself? How am I going to do this? I have friends, they're going to help me, but I have to go through this stuff. They can't do it, And it's not the way I would have done it, but God did it, where I didn't have to worry about it.
Absolutely.
I was like, God is not the way I would have done it, but all right. Now, in the midst of all this, it was just like one thing after another. Prior to me going to surgery, there was a flood, there was rain, and I rode through a puddle, not a large puddle. And my car went out. So then I had to get a car. But this was time during COVID. So the computer systems, they weren't having a lot of cars, but I needed a car. So I had to wait to get a car. So that happened, then the surgery, and then the flood. After the flood, I go through all this. My godmother dies. I'm like, okay, God, all right, okay. I'm still recuperating. I'm still getting myself together, going through all this. Then my oldest nephew, mother dies. I'm like, okay, this is all right. This is a lot. God, this like
a lot is an understatement.
I'm like,
I'm sitting here because I want to go back and do a tally.
Yeah.
When you finish each event.
Yeah, because literally within a year, I lost my mother, my godmother. Lost my mother. Found out I had cancer. Lost my godmother. My nephew's mother passed away, and
the car. So
right.
that's at least 5
yes,
right there.
In the car. So after the surgery, the doctor said she got everything, but they do a maintenance treatment, which is what I'm doing now. So the first maintenance treatment she wasn't happy with because my tumor levels were going back up. Because they get everything, but they need to make sure, even though there's tumor markers, they may be cancerous, but they may not. So they need to make sure that they're not. So that's why you do the maintenance treatment. We started the maintenance treatment. The first one she didn't like. I did another one. It's called the Red Devil. That was the worst one.
Hence the name.
Yes, it changes your skin, makes your hands black. You get marks on your body, and I didn't react well to that, so we changed that. The new one that I'm on is 3 weeks on, 1 week off. It's working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But I always tell people the hardest thing for me with cancer was just not feeling like myself. Like, my doctor even said, with women, it's not even the way you look. It's just not feeling like you. Like, I like to do things. I'm an outgoing person, and I just didn't have energy to do anything. It was just laborious to go to the bathroom. So it's like, the world is going on around you, and you're sitting there watching it go on, and you're grateful to be alive, but it's like, I just want to feel like me. And that was the hardest thing. Like, losing my hair, I like my hair, but like I said before, my eyebrows, that bothered me. Because you look like an alien without eyebrows. I'm like, you literally look like an alien when you don't have eyebrows. So the doctor said, yes, it's very, women's thing is, the hair loss, it's the skin, your skin changes. After the chemo, my skin was so dry, and I was trying to find so many different things to keep my skin moisturized, because it just gets to the point you get the neuropathy on the bottom of your feet, which is horrible because it doesn't matter what shoes you wear. Sneakers, flip-flops, it doesn't matter. It just, your feet always hurt. Someone gave me a really good tip, and I was like, oh my God, I never thought of Aspercreme on the bottom of your feet. It's a pain reliever. That has helped tremendously. But it's like, I like my shoes, I like to do certain things, and I'm like, it's just feeling normal. But in all of that, the whole time I was going through this, I just kept saying, I never was scared, which is weird to me. I can't explain it. It was God. But it was just like, I never was afraid that I was going to die. It was just, I knew that there was a reason for it, and I would say, okay, God, you just let me know why I'm going through this, because there has to be a reason for this. And I just, it's weird because a friend of mine said to me, because I miss my mother tremendously. And she said to me, but your mother couldn't have handled you being sick. She was like, she would not have been okay. So he took her, because that would have killed her. And I saw her go through breast cancer twice, which is really crazy. Almost 30 years in between, and they weren't the same cancer. And she was younger when she battled the first one, so of course she was older. So it was a lot. But it's just, God has showed me so many things in going through this. He has removed people from my life that meant me no good. He has brought people, Marc, into my life that have been supportive. My support system has been amazing. It's like, you have friends, you have family, and they love you, but like people always say, you can love me when everything's good. Right. It's when things are bad. Right. Are you going to be there? And I'm a very independent person that I can do it. Or just like even my brother was like, I'm coming up when he had the surgery. I was like, no, I'll be fine. It's no big deal, whatever. And he was like, no. And it was good to have a friendly face before I went into that room. That's it was, because I was like, no, you drop me off and I'll be fine, whatever. He's like, no, Mommy's not here. I'm going to be there when you go into that room.
No, that's interesting you said, because I'm the exact same. Yeah. Before Jeannie and I went on the air, I was sharing some things with her. Right. And one of the things is that on February the 3rd, I would be having, for the most part, minor procedure as well. But my daughter did the same thing that your brother did. Mm-hmm. She was like, no, I'm coming up. Mm-hmm. She's coming up from Alexandria. Nope, I'm not letting you go by yourself.
Yeah, because it was really, I didn't realize it was so important. father died when I was 7. So it's just been, it was me, my grandmother, and my mother and my brother. My mother and my grandmother, very strong, like, every day I thank God for them. Because I wouldn't be the woman that I am today without them. I wouldn't have been able to get through this without God and them. My grandmother was a, Pentecostal pastor. So it's like, she always told us, you're praying, you go, yeah, Nana, whatever, yeah. God's gonna take you, yeah, God's gonna take you through, all right, yeah, you always say that. That's your answer for everything. But, like I have said to many people, I know that I know that I know. This is, it's not what my grandmother told me. It's not what my mother told me. I know for a fact that without God, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, Mark, right now. I would not be sitting here talking to you because I would have been somewhere probably crazy with everything that happened. Completely and totally out of my mind. But I would say another thing that happened after, because I needed to find some place to live.
Right.
So yeah, I had to find somewhere. And I had planned on selling the house anyway because the house is huge and it's just me and I don't need 5 bathrooms, 4 bedrooms, and I didn't need all that. And it's expensive. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? My plan was to rent for a year and then look for something because the market was crazy. So as I'm looking for an apartment, they want your firstborn, right, your lastborn.
That's right. Yes, they do.
DNA, 5 checks, and everything. I'm going, because I said, I lived on the east side of Paterson. I said, I refuse to live any place where I'm afraid to go in.
Correct.
And I am out with my friends and be like, okay, it's getting dark. I got to go back in. I can't live like that at 53 years old. I'm not doing it. So every place was so, and I'm like, okay, I might as well pay a mortgage if I'm going to do
That's
that.
Correct.
So I have a friend that was purchasing my mother's house. So one day he calls me and I'm so frustrated. I'm just like, I probably had a breakdown in car. Like, okay, God, I need to find, cause it wasn't a problem with me staying with my friend, but when you're used to having your own, it's a problem. It's a problem. So I'm on the phone with him and he needs some information for the house. He goes, how's it going with you searching for your apartment? And I'm like, they're asking for firstborn. They're asking for just,
That's true.
it's just ridiculous.
I went through the same experience.
Yeah, I'm like,
I know exactly what you're talking
I'm like,
about.
they want you to make 5 times what the rent is. And I'm like, I know people who have 2 households that can't do that. So I'm like, so it was getting rough. So he said to me, I don't know why I didn't say this to you. He said, but I have a condo that I'm selling. Come look at it. I think you'll like it. He's like, are you averse to living in Paterson? I said, no, as long as I don't have to have a gun when I walk in the house or hire a bodyguard.
Exactly.
I'm good. I don't have a problem with that. So he takes me to his place and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. He takes me downstairs. He also owns the one downstairs and he says to me, this one is nice too, but it's under contract. That's the one I liked even more. I'm like, but I can't have it. A couple of weeks later, he calls me. He said, the contract fell through. If you want the one downstairs, you can have it. So I said, really? He's like, yeah. Not only, I'm asking God for an apartment and God gives me a home, no mortgage, it's paid for, in a great neighborhood, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. That was the other thing. From going from this big house, I was like, I cannot live in a box. I was like, it'll drive me crazy. I'll never want to be home. I need enough space, but not too much space. And this place is perfect. And I'm like, look at God. Again, I'm like limiting.
You know what? I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm not interrupting because you're absolutely right. When God is doing it, things are moved that man cannot move. And I've had that experience. There's tiny experiences like that, and then there are gigantic experiences like that. You were describing a gigantic experience like that. I had that experience when I left corporate and came into education. I had it recently, what we were talking about earlier. You just see the hand of God moving. Like, you know what? Man could not have done this.
Exactly.
As smart and intelligent and great, could not have coordinated to work out like that.
No.
And so this is one that was already under contract. That's the one you wanted. The contract fell through.
And I ended up...
And you wound up with it. See, that I agree with you. That was nothing but the hand of God. That's what it was. You all can call it what you want. You can call it the universe. You can call it spirit. You can call it energy. You call it what you want. At the end of the day, there's something bigger than me and Jennean and all those of you listening. There's another realm out there. You hear me say that almost every week. There's another realm out there that's way more powerful than the realm that we are on right now. And when it intervenes, when God intervenes, it doesn't matter that the contract was, like the place was under contract. The contract fell through. Okay? I've seen the hand of God move in my life in certain areas. Like I said, I've seen him move every day for that matter, but I'm talking like big things like what Jennean is describing. I mean, matter of fact, all 5, 6 of the things that she was describing were major. How did, like, you were dealing with a health issue. How did not the other issues exacerbate that by stress?
I made up my mind that my health was more important and that I couldn't stress about something that I couldn't control. It's like I can't control these things that are happening. So my main concern was I have to get better. If I don't get better, those other things aren't going to matter anyway. They're just not going to matter.
Good point.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're talking your mom passing away, you're diagnosed with cancer, and a serious cancer. You come home, your place is full. There's a pipe that's bust.
Yeah, because that was during that last January when it was the coldest it had ever been in life. It was just, I was like, what is going on?
So the coldest in life, yes. Stuff was freezing up all over the place. So you had that. Then you needed a car. Okay. And then on top of that, at that point, you hadn't gotten the condo yet. You needed a place to stay. So all this was going on simultaneously. And you still kept it together.
Yeah.
See, that's God in yourself too.
Yes.
Because that's enough to drive somebody insane.
Yes, that's why I said, I was like, there is nothing but God, because I would be literally, y'all would be coming to visit me in the loony bin. Because it was, even afterwards, I sat back and I was like, wow. I mean, I really, and I take no credit for it. It's God and the way I was raised too. My mother, I always say, at 7, she had 2 kids. Her husband died suddenly. And she had to keep moving.
See, it's, all these things that we're talking about, and for those of you listening, I truly hope you've been with me since 6, but certainly, if you haven't been with me since 6, certainly since 7, my guest this morning is Jennean Gadsden, and I had already said in the promo that it was going to be an inspirational story, and it is. And if it's inspiring nobody else, it's inspiring me, because we're talking like sudden life changes. She just talked about one with her mom. Husband passed away unexpectedly, has the kids there. And see, this is where people I take my hat off, because my mom, me and my sister were a little bit older when my father passed suddenly. We were older, but it was a life change for my mom. She was only in her 40s at the time. Again, got blindsided, heart attack, out of the blue. My dad died a week before his 49th birthday. He was 48. He would have turned 49 the next week, and he, boom, was gone. Took my mother into a whole nother place as well. But folks are able to move on. And the reason they're able to move on, as Jennean is saying, is because of God. I mean, I'm just sitting here, and she knows, because I had the mic button off, and I'm sitting there looking at her like jaw dropped as she's sharing each thing that was happening within a very short period of time. Because this is the thing about life. You can be going along la-di-da, everything is great, honey and milk, this and all of a sudden, and that's why I want to go back to this, and I ask each one of you that's sharing that story with you, and I heard you say, okay, I had my little meltdown, but what, I mean, even me today, when I hear the word cancer, I'm like, oh, what, when the doctor now says, you have ovarian cancer, when you say what was going through your mind? I wasn't scared, and I never thought about, oh my God, I'm going to die. It was just, I felt that even the way that I was dealing with the doctor, I had confidence
that God had sent me there. And that it was going to be okay. I watched my mother battle breast cancer twice. And she fought. And I'm like, if she can do that, I definitely, at this age, can fight. What will happen, I don't know, but I'm going to fight. I'm not going to just lay down and die. Because as my grandmother used to say, too stupid to lay down and die. Just don't know no better. just not even smart enough to do that. Like, I just, you know. Because even with my grandmother, it's crazy because I always tell women that are raising girls, I don't have any children, but from experience, your daughters are watching you even when you don't think they are. You know, and you're telling them things, they're looking, because I know, because my grandmother, we always joked and said my grandmother was born saved, because she just, Jesus, everything, Jesus was Jesus. So it's like, you know, she would say something but we were paying attention. My grandmother raised 5 of her nieces and nephews when my mother was grown and had her own children, because she didn't want them to go to foster care and be separated. So she raised 5 kids when she had a grown daughter that was out of the house already. And I watched, and I was there, my brother and I were there, and saw her make sure they had what they wanted, what they needed, and supplied everything because of God. I'm like...
And see, just like in my other 2 cases with Karen and Kim and now Jennean, if you were to look at these women, you would have absolutely no clue that they've gone through and are going through what they're describing for you here on air. Because, I mean, a lot of it I heard, and we're going to get to that at some point too, that Jennean actually threw herself a party.
Yes. And
a lot of what she's saying I heard at that party, and some of it I hadn't. But just the thought, because I'm whining about what I'm going through, and somebody else listening may be whining about what they're going through. But when you listen to what somebody else has gone through, and they're saying that was God who did that, and what we're saying is the same God that did that for Jennean is the same God that can do that for Marc, is the same God that can do that for whomever. That's the upshot of what we're saying here this morning in terms of having faith. And if you notice, she said, it was kind of like, well, I really wasn't scared. It was not like, because I hear the cancer word and automatically, and most people do, they go to death.
No, I never thought, I mean, eventually I know I will be dead. I mean, I'm not thinking I'm going to live forever, but I just never, the first thing that came to mind wasn't, oh my God, I'm going to die. It was fight. I got to fight. Like, I have a lot of life to live. I'm not ready. And obviously God, because all these things, there is a plan.
Right.
There's a plan. Whether it's for another 30 years, whether it's for another, there's a plan, because God didn't bring me through all of this for me to be dead.
Correct. And see, every last one of you that I talk to, what I get and gather is the attitude and the spirit of which you go into this thing. If you go into the thing with a defeatist spirit, then most likely, you know what, you're going to check out. If you go into it with the attitude that Jennean is talking about in terms of, well, you know what, because there was another friend of mine, Carolyn DeGraffenreid. Carolyn, we talked, and I'm going to have her on the show at some point too. Carolyn had pancreatic cancer. And Carolyn said pretty much the same thing, like, oh, I ain't going out like that. What you call it? We're going to fight this. We're going to. And so you got to kind of have that same mentality. That I call it that I'll be D-A-M-N-E-D. I won't say it on the air. Even though I could, I won't. But I'll be begins with a D. It's kind of like, oh no, I ain't going out like that. That's the kind of attitude and the spirit that you have. It's almost like, oh no, we gonna fight this. Like death, we fighting. We you know, you may get me at some point, but I tell you what, it's gonna be a fight. Yes.
Even my doctor always says, she laughs because before I do anything, I always ask her, can I do this? Can I? She says I'm a model patient, because I'm like, I'm not going, it doesn't make sense to have a doctor and I'm not going to listen to what she says. If I don't trust her, because I have 2 doctors. I have the doctor that did the surgery, and then I have a doctor who administers the treatments. She decides what treatments I'm going to get and how. And they're excellent doctors. They answer any questions. I see her every time I go for treatment. She sees me. It's not her assistant. It's her. she sees me and sits and talks and, you know, and everything. They were trying to come to my party. They were like, but they were out of town. Because that's another thing. When I was going through all of this, I said, when I'm feeling bad, I'm throwing myself a party. I was like, I'm going to have a party. I said, I'm tired of us. We've been dealing with COVID, so many of my friends, death, and all kinds. I said, I want everybody who has supported me and has been here through this journey to be in one room and just have a good time. Don't worry about anything else. Just come and enjoy yourself and just live and enjoy just this moment. And let's live in this moment right here. And if anything happens a week or 2, 5 years, you're going to remember this moment.
And those words that she just said, she actually said in her speech. You had a name for the party. What was the name for the party?
Glow Up. Jenean's Glow Up.
That's right. It was Jenean's Glow Up. It had a nice background and everything. And at that party, in order to be invited to that party, you had to have been a member of her support group. So it wasn't just a party for anybody.
Yes, no.
It was she was very intentional and specific. Because she'd even shared that I have to be very mindful of the energy that's going to be in that room. That's a
key, is the people around. Not one person that supported me ever mentioned death. Oh my God. Even if they cried when they were home, nobody ever did it in front of me. I was like, oh my God, what are you going to do? Never a negative thought. Never, as I always said, Pastor Clayton, as we call him, because I'm going to be nice today.
Jennean and Pastor Clayton were friends before he was Pastor Clayton. They went to school together. They went to high school together.
So, you know, he would call me all the time, and I'm like sitting there going, why is he calling me again? What? But I knew that he was concerned because we are friends. And, you know, it wasn't the pastor. It was like, okay, this is, you know, she's been through a lot, because he knew every step, even with taking care of my mother. He knew every step, because it was tough, you know, taking care of my mother and watching her, you know, deteriorate, and just knowing that it was coming. Like, I wasn't prepared for her to die, of course, because I wish she would be here forever. But I didn't want her to suffer and be selfish just so I could look at her every day. And strong-willed woman, she wasn't gonna, if she couldn't do everything, she wouldn't have wanted to be here anyway. But it's been a journey. I'm still going through the journey. It's nothing but, I'm amazed at God, because we always, we limit him. We do. Because you ask for something little, and he's like, okay, well, you're not getting that because I got something better for you.
Correct.
But it's just, I'm just in awe of God. Because a year ago, I couldn't even sit in here with you. I never take naps during the day during work. I would leave work just to lay down for lunch, because I was like, I have to lay down. I have to lay down. And then at that time, it was just me here, so I had to work and go see my mother when she was in the hospital, or take care of her when she was home. And the tiredness that time was because my iron level was so low. I had no energy. And it just, the doctor kept saying to me, well, I don't understand how you were doing all of this. I'm like, you just do what you have to do. I'm like, I couldn't lay down. I had to do what I had to do. I had to take care of my mother. I had to work. I can't not work. So I got to go to work.
No, I see, again, as I keep sharing, and if you do want to call in, if you want to shout out to Jennean, if you want to encourage her, if you want to just say, oh my God, this story, 973-720-2738. Going back to what I said about, this is and there's that song and that saying that says, I'm glad when I don't look like what I've been through.
Amen.
If you see these folks, you would not notice. And I'm saying all that to say, on the flip side, or in an addendum to, that's why we got to be kind and treat everybody, because you don't know what people are going through.
Yes.
People did not know she was dealing with a life-threatening disease, dealing with her mom, dealing with the house. People wouldn't know that by looking at her. So now somebody comes along And not to mention her job. I know Janine's job because I've had to go down there a few times. That's where folks go pay their taxes. That's where folks go pay their taxes on their houses and this, that, and that. So most likely in many instances as they walk into that room, they're already salty.
Yes.
Because they're dealing with, they don't want to give up their money in this assessment and yada, yada, yada. So now she has that going on as well. And now you come along and just, you know, for whatever reason mistreat her or get nasty or whatever and wonder why she snaps. Because you had no clue of what your comment took her over the edge based on everything. So that's why it behooves us to make sure that we treat everybody kind, because we don't know what folks are going through. And I am convinced, if you notice the timeline, all this stuff is happening, I am convinced COVID traumatized the world.
Yes.
Because that's the other thing that was going on too. When you was going through all this, COVID was there.
Yep. So then I had to be conscious too, leaving the house because my mother was sick. So I had to make sure that I was, but everything that I was like, even when the doctor, I was talking about being tired, my menstruation was off. But I'm thinking menopause. I'm 50-something years old. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Oh, it's menopause, you know, whatever. And the doctor said that. So I never really thought, and it wasn't anything, the hemoglobin is what scared me. Because they were saying that can mess with your heart, that I could have been driving and passed out. So that was, everything else could be explained away with menopause. That's why, and the doctor to this day says to me, listen to your body. Like I'll say to her, can I do such and such? And she always says, listen to your body. If your body says you can do it, then do it.
You want to go on the air?
The other blessing,
hang on.
The other blessing is I was out of work for 3 months when I was off. And because I go to work every day, I got paid. I did not have to go on disability because I had that much sick time and I still have more sick time. I have over 3 months. Again,
that's God too. And I tell you, I have a caller on the line. Lestine, are you there? Ms. Robinson, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, so we have Lestine Robinson. Lestine is on the air with us. What do you want to say, Lestine? Go ahead, you're on.
I want to say to Jennean, I am so encouraged with her journey because I know for personal that God can do it. But just to hear her talk, because most of the time she's on the quiet side. I see you in church.
She's absolutely right.
I am so encouraged with it. It's not that you would get up in front of, when they ask for testimony. I don't think you would ever did that in front of the church. But I'm listening to you now.
Thank you so much for the call. I know that's right. And for those of you in the listening audience, Lestine is one of my faithful listeners. She's another one who every Saturday morning tunes in. And I'm so glad that she does and grateful for it. And she's absolutely right. Janine, believe it or not, you would not believe it listening to Janine this morning. Janine is very quiet.
I'm not quiet.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, you're quiet.
I'm reserved. Most people wouldn't say I was quiet. Okay, you're reserved. Yes.
Lestine, thank you so much for the call and thank you so much for listening. All right?
Thank you. Love you.
I hope they love you, Janine. Thank you for sharing that powerful testimony.
I know that's right. Thank you for the call, Lestine.
Okay.
All right. If you want to get into a conversation like Lestine just did, the number again is 973-720-2738. And we're talking about Janine's journey, not only with cancer, but with so many other things that was going on simultaneously. You know, there's that old song, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here, up in here. I don't know how Janine didn't lose her mind up in here, up in here. And again, because all of those, one alone would have been challenging enough. But now we're talking about 4, 5, 6 major, had to get a car, had to gut a house, had to find a place, and dealing with chemo and cancer and everything else that goes along with that. And as she said, still had to go to work, lost my mom. And then right before the caller called, I got another call. You were saying how your benefits and your money and your pay.
Yes, I was out for 3 months after my surgery. And because I go to work every day.
Right, exactly.
I was out for 3 months and got paid.
Wow.
Didn't have to go on disability. And I still have enough sick time, and I could take another 2 months off.
I know that's right. So, caller, I have another caller in the air. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Just wanted to touch base real quick. I've been listening. I've been impressed. I'm going through some things right now in regards to my mom. What about some dietary things? Anything that she can suggest dietary to make things a little bit better going through some of this stuff?
My problem was with anything that had bread. Like any bread just tasted weird. So what I did was supplement with Ensure. That definitely helped about twice. Vegetables helped a lot too. But like meats and stuff just didn't taste right, and they didn't digest properly. That's a big thing. But I would definitely see what vegetables, because some vegetables can be different too. So you kind of have to, it's a trial and error. So I had to keep trying things, and I would buy things, and some things just didn't work. So I'm throwing out food, but definitely the Ensure applesauce and vegetables, and make sure she stays hydrated, because that's what happened to me. My first treatment, I didn't drink enough. So then I became dehydrated. So the fluids are essential, and it also helps to bring the chemo through your system. So make sure plenty of water before, during, and after. That is utterly important. Because the first time I was like, oh, water, whatever. But it really does make a difference to flush that out of your system.
Well, right now, again, she's had the chemo. Uh-huh. She's done the radiation.
Okay.
Technically, this is her third round.
Oh, well, okay.
This is her third bout. And again, trying to keep her encouraged has been one of the things that we're working on.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, she has no taste.
Yeah.
Nothing tastes right. She has very little appetite, but she knows she has to eat and she has to drink. The doctor's trying a new med. It's a pill that she takes twice a day.
Yeah, it's supposed to increase her appetite, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And like I said, again, we're just trying to keep her, like you said, drinking plenty of fluid, taking that med on time. Mm-hmm. And again, like I said, just keeping her encouraged.
Does she like the Ensure?
She has some Ensure, and again, we're trying to get her Ensure, Boost, things like that. Because
I totally understand, because you have to eat, but the food doesn't taste good. It just doesn't taste good.
No.
At all. I can't even describe it just doesn't, everything tastes weird. So you don't enjoy the food because it doesn't taste good. And even the digestion, it's hard too with the digestion. It's because then you're afraid to get sick too. So you're eating and you don't want the nausea. You don't want to be constipated. So you're just like, I'm not going to eat. But it's tough. But the Ensure, definitely the supplement, it helps. It definitely helps, because she has to have something so that she can have some strength to fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I'm going to, let her know all that we had talked about, and thank you so very much.
No, thank you.
And I continue to thank Marc for the show and the wonderful guest that he provides for so much educational information for people like me that's on the sideline, being a cheerleader. So again, thank you both so very much this morning.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Wardell, for the call. Wardell is another faithful listener calling all the way from South Carolina. He listens every week as well. So my faithful listeners are calling. If you're first-time listener, if you want to call and speak to Jennean, feel free. Again, the number is 973-720-2738. All right, Wardell, have a great one.
You guys take care, and thanks again.
Thank you. That's the other thing. I've been on both sides. I've been the caretaker, and then I've been the patient.
Good point.
Yeah, I've done both. So it's funny, because like some things I didn't understand with my mother. She, older people, she didn't complain. She would just go through. My mother was driving herself to chemo.
Wow.
I did the same thing. People are like, you driving yourself? I'm like, because actually, the day of chemo, you feel fine. It's the 2-3 days later that it hits. And it's funny, because with my mother, we always noticed 2 or 3 days later, that's when she would start feeling sick. And I noticed 2-3 days later, that's when I would start, whatever I was going to feel, that's when you feel it. And it's weird, because once you start feeling better, it's time to go back.
Oh, Man. And see, a lot of this, my sister was diagnosed some years ago with congestive heart failure.
My mother had that too.
Led into a whole bunch of issues with the kidneys and with and a lot of the things that you're describing, the neuropathy, the taste, food. She's shared with me the same. Because this is the thing about health. If I have a choice between health and wealth, meaning health and money, I'll take the health.
Every time.
Because if you have your health, you can get more money. If I had a choice between health and honey, I'll take the health because you can always get another honey. Right? When your health starts going and that's why, thank God, they're able to do what they're doing and share what they're sharing, because this is not easy. I've been around for, like I said, family members, my sister in particular, who's been struggling over the last 3 or 4 years with a health issue. And it impacts everything else. Because see, like I was saying earlier, life can be going one way 1 minute and the next minute go left real fast. And your life will never be the same again. Never. You look at things different. I don't see things the same anymore. I don't stress about things. And if you don't add to my life, then like I was saying, I'm not mad. This is where you are in my life, and we keep it moving. I'm not going to stress about it because I need to be okay. So my mental needs to be okay. My spiritual needs to be okay for my physical to be okay. Correct. My aunt, who is also listening from North Carolina, Princess, years ago in I think it was year 2000, she had a horrific accident. They were on a horse and buggy ride. You go do around the city. The horse got out of a brick wall. The side that went into the brick wall was where my aunt was sitting.
Wow.
Lost everything. Had to relearn everything, how to walk, how to talk, how to write, how to this, how to that, how to that. Same thing that you just said is exactly her attitude. That, you know what, it is what it is, but a totally different perspective from life in terms of, you know what, I don't have time to be with that energy. I don't have time to be that person. Love you, but if you're not in here to my benefit, she has, very much so. Very much so in terms of same kind of attitude. Like, I'll go to her whining about what I'm in, and she's kind of like, well, you just,
Right. Yeah. I find that funny, too. Like, a lot of people, I'll have somebody call me, and they're complaining about something, and I'll just say, okay, well, you have choices. You got to deal with it, or you're not, or not, or whatever. And, I don't mind listening to people when they're, things happen in life and they need to talk, but I'm not going to talk about it 5 times. We now need to talk about solutions. Like, let's talk about solutions now. What are we going to do to change that?
Right.
Because talking about it is not going to, like, if I said and say, oh, I really should go for treatment, or I really, really should go to the doctor, I probably wouldn't be here right now. There has to be action. There has to be action. And I just, like, this year, I already have 3 trips booked.
That's right.
I'm living life.
Right.
I'm living.
Because that's the other thing. Yeah. Whenever you get into a life-altering situation, or particularly one that's threatening your time here, you do take on a different perspective. But you know what? I'm taking that trip.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to do that self-care for me. You know what? I'm doing this for me. And that's, that's where I'm always. Over the last year and a half or so, in terms of self-care, I definitely kicked that up a notch.
Yes.
Like, I had no problem going to the salon, getting pedicures, getting my massages. If I want to go here, I go here. If I want to buy this, I buy that. Totally different perspective when you have a life-altering event.
It definitely, like, when I turned 50, it was funny, people laughed because I celebrated the whole year. I had no idea this was going to happen. That was in 2019. I had no idea that my mother would get sick, I would get sick. I had no idea. But I was like, instead of having a party, I'm going to do something every month. So I did something every month for the year that I turned 50. And I'm so happy I did that, because the years after that, my mother got sick in 20, then 21, then I'm like, if I hadn't done that, I would have just been stuck.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough that you would say, because I always say to people all the time, I am so happy that my youth years in terms of like teens, 20s, 30s, and for the most part 40s were really good.
Mm-hmm.
The issues started coming up in the 40s, 50s, and now 60s, whatever, and various one way or the other. But the thing is, when things are going well, it was kind of like you were saying about the Friends. It's not like we're, God did the good thing, God did the good, God. But when things start going bad, then it's kind of like, okay, God, what's going on?
Right.
You know, did you ever get to that point? I know you haven't because we've had the conversation. Did you ever get to that point of why me?
No. I always said, I never asked why, because I am a firm believer that there's a purpose and a lesson in everything, good, bad, and indifferent. So if it's happening, there's a reason. And I would pray, God, please let me see what you want me to see while I'm going through this. Because on my own, I can't. So I need to know, show me what is, and it's crazy because I'm going through all these horrible things, but in this same realm, he's putting things in my life that are good. Things are still happening that are good. So it's like I had to see the good in the bad.
Exactly. Matter of fact, when I open the show up this morning, I always start reading from two books. This is one of them. I'm going to have you read what I read earlier. Just start from where it says reflection. You can read it on the air.
Okay. If your spirit is heavy and you have unresolved issues, take it to God in prayer. He's waiting on you to turn to him. Stop holding hurt, pain, unforgiveness, the past, rejection, rape, lies, abandonment, and abuse. Free yourself from those burdens.
All right. And that's exactly, for the most part, what Jennean is saying. Mm-hmm. We're going to get the good, we're going to get the bad, we're going to get the ugly. We're going to get all of it in life. There is no getting around that. There is no respecter of person. There is no what? Jennean got cancer?
Right.
No. What? Marc is going through a divorce? What? Right. There is no respecter of person in terms of what can happen in life. I shared with you all earlier, I've been meeting with parents all week. And as the parents were sharing their stories with me of what was going on in their households, me and the guidance counselor were like therapists. But what came to me was not one that I know is not going through something. Now, each one may be into a different level of magnitude, but everybody is really going through something. Mm-hmm. And for me, it just seems like it's been exacerbated or even heightened with this whole pandemic. It just feels like for me that the earth is kind of spun off its axis over that period of time with COVID. Now, we know that hasn't happened, but it just feels that way because there's so much going on. But when I hear stories like Jennean's, that's whenever, and that's why Lestine was so excited, because that gives us hope. For those of you out there in the listening audience who are going through something, you're going through anything, you just heard Jennean talk about going through about 6 things at once. And most of us are going through one thing. So if Jennean can sit here and go through 6 and say, that was God, then we should be able to have the hope and the faith to say, all right, I can go through whatever mine is, and the same God that was working with Jennean is the same God that will work with me.
Definitely. Because that's the only way I got through it, was God.
I know that's right. So I'll tell you what. Callers, I'm going to give you one last shot to call in if you want to, and then after that, Jennean and I are going to wrap up. But the number, again, is 973-720-2738. When I sent the promotion out, I said this was going to be an inspirational story, and it is. So if you want to talk to Jennean, you want to shout out, you want to encourage, 973-720-2738. Otherwise, I'm going to allow Jennean to do any shout outs that she wants, and we'll get ready to close down. But I tell you, just listening to you, I am encouraged. I am inspired. And even whenever it does look dark and it looks like you can't go on, I can listen to a story like yours and say, oh, yes, I can. I can run on a little bit further and see what the end going to be.
Yes, like I joke and say, God and I had some serious conversations, and I was like, all right, God, like, enough. like, all right, like, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to get from this, but can we take a pause and let me think about it and then see if I got the right answer or not? Because it's even with the COVID thing, I'm like, God, okay, Obviously you're trying to teach us something, and some of us got it, but do all of us have to have it before we will stop this? It's just like I just always say, God is so amazing. I've seen him work in my life. I've seen him in other people's lives. And like I said, I know for myself, not for anybody else. But I can tell you for sure, I make a joke and I say, if anybody told me they didn't believe in God, I think I'll fight them. I'm like, cause he's everywhere. It's just like, you have to, I have a friend of mine, who just lost her father, and I kept saying to her, you have to remember there's a reason for God, it's a reason for everything, like everything. And I think that that's what helps you get through things, when you're like, God, there's a reason, and I know that I'm hurting right now. I know that I'm in pain. I know that I'm crawling to the bathroom. I know that I can't eat. I've lost all this weight, and, you know, I like to shop, but I was like, okay, I wasn't trying to shop like this and have to buy all them clothes like this. But there's a reason for it, and even if this moment right here is the reason, it's worth it.
Correct. And it was something else that Jennean said, which was, just get real with God. All right, you know what, God, enough. Now, see, and we've had this conversation before as well, in terms of, there is nothing wrong with approaching God the same way you would approach another person if somebody was doing something to you. God can take that. And so, because I know exactly when Jennean's all like, all right, enough of this.
Right,
like what is going on here? But at the same time, what I found, Jennean, is when I do that, I usually get an answer. It happened to me this morning. It happened to me last Saturday. Something that I said in a prayer like that, just plain old words, something came up. I was like, okay, he heard me. And because that's a sign, it was a text message, it was a photo, it was a something that said, oh, God heard what I said this morning. And it happened to me this morning, it happened to me last Saturday. So that's what I'm saying. And this is the other thing when she says, like, I know what I know. There's one thing, and she said it earlier, and we hear it a lot of times in church. It's one thing for Big Mama to know.
Yes.
It's one thing for Pop to know. But when you go through life experiences, trust me when I tell you, you will know for yourself. It won't be about what Big Mama said and what Pop said. It's going to be because you know, like she said, based on what I went through, knowing that no man on earth could have done that it had to be something bigger and higher than me. That's when you get to know for yourself. You've heard me lay this claim to fame repeatedly. If you want to understand, because I'm trying to share my story without sharing all my business, but if you want to understand what I've been going through, then read Genesis 37 to 50. I've been telling people my story is the story of Joseph. Falsely accused, lied on, rejected, so forth and so on and so on and on. The story of Joseph has been my story. That story became real to me. I knew the story of Joseph since childhood. But having gone through the events that I went through, that story leaped out at me and it became real. So when she's talking about know what you know, I know exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah. And I made a promise to God when I had my surgery in January. I told him I would read the Bible in a year, and I just finished it.
All right now. And I said it watch night. There is nothing in the Bible that's not going on now, and there's nothing going on now that's not in the Bible. Nothing is new under the sun. Every scenario we could possibly find ourselves in, there's a biblical account for it. All right, so one last shot, callers. If you want to call in, don't be afraid. Because I do not equate the phone not ringing to folks not listening. Because I listen to radio shows all the time and I don't call in. So I get it. But if you do want to call, if you want to talk to her, the number is 973-720-2738. We've had 2 callers already. You can join us. Otherwise, I'm going to allow Jennean to give closing thoughts and shout outs and anything else she'd like to say. I mean, I got until 9 o'clock and it's about 8:13. So, anything you want to say, I'm going to let you go ahead and start closing out. Any shout outs, any thoughts,
Yeah. I want to thank you. I appreciate, like every time, like I told you before, every time I would have like a moment where I was just like, okay, God, like this is a lot. You would always, it was just in time that you would send me something and I would be like, thank you, God. Thank you. I really appreciated that. It meant a lot. A lot. Because, I mean, I had a lot of supporters, and it was amazing, the people that reached out and everything. And that was the purpose of the party. The party really was not about me. It was about thanking all the people that supported me through all of this, because it was tough. It has been an arduous journey, and without God and my people, I know for sure that I would not be where I am right now, in the frame of mind that I am in right now, because people have lost their mind for less.
Absolutely. And you know the interesting thing about, even because Jennean said exactly that at the glow up party, we don't know when something that we may think is small, or why we're led by the Spirit to do it, we don't know the impact it has on the receiver. Because for me, Jennean would come to my mind, and I would go into a meme or go into somewhere or find something to encourage, and I just send it off to her. Wouldn't give it another thought. But when she said that at the party, and again, that's why we just do not know how our acts of kindness are impacting somebody else. Just like we don't know how our act of evil and meanness is impacting somebody else. All right.
Long term.
Exactly. So it really does pay. And, you know, somebody sent me a text the other day saying, you know what, I gotten to the point now, and I've gotten to that same point, that if you cross my mind, I'm going to reach out to you.
I think it's important. A lot of people have said, oh, I thought about so-and-so, and then next thing you know, you heard they died.
Yep.
And it's like, you just reach out to people, and it's, I think with social media and everything, we've lost connection. Because we're, you know, everybody's on social media, and you're looking at, and you're not meeting people and having conversations and seeing their facial expression and seeing their body language to know how your words are affecting them.
Absolutely. That case in point, Lestine, who called in, there was a member of the church. She had turned 100 years old, Mabel Biggs. And I knew Mabel. Mabel always had a wonderful sense of humor, wonderful spirit. And Lestine and I were talking, and Mabel had just turned 100 on August 16th. And I had told Lestine, I said, I said, since my goal is 100 and healthy, I got to call Mabel. I'm going to make sure I call Mabel. I didn't call her. She died that next week. I'm like, oh. So when someone comes across your mind, text them, call them. If you see them on social media, if you're on Facebook Messenger or whatever, just once they come across your mind, because as we were just saying, you don't know in between the time that you actually do it, or if you put it off, what might happen to them. Because this happened, Mabel's case was not the first time that's happened to me. And so I really do, when somebody crossed my mind, or, you know, the thought or the spirit leads me to, you know, reach out to that one, I try to follow it, because you just never know. If no one else has been encouraged by listening to Jennean, I am, because I say that, you know, again, I don't track my number of listeners. Since we broadcast around the world, and I do advertise it all over the place, my guess is we probably have a few. But if no one else has been encouraged by the story, I know I have. Because again, that tells me, Mark, you can make it through. And for those of you in the listening audience, I hope that's what it's telling you, that whatever your name is, you know what, if Jennean can get through that, if God can do that for Jennean, I want to know Jennean's God.
Amen.
If God did that for Jennean, I need to know, if I don't know who Jennean's God is, I need to know who Jennean's God is, because I need some help myself.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, that pretty much does it for us. I'm going to put the music back on for a little bit and go back out into the lobby with Jennean. And I will do what I need to do as we've moved into the 8 o'clock hour. Believe it or not, the time goes very quickly.
Thank you.
When guests come on, they're like, what in the world are we going to talk about for an hour? Trust me, it goes quick. So thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You will get all the recordings and the links, and you can send it to all the people who are not early birds.
Yes, and I'm going back to bed.